McLaren, as predicted, dominated qualifying today. Obviously, it was not perfect for them. It never is for any race team, even when they've got a great car like the MCL 39. But they have taken the front row of the grid. Oscar Piastri on the pole from Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen third in the Red Bull right at the end, struggling a little bit to get the car up to speed, get the balance right for the grip level that he has. But in the end, it is the two McLarens from Max, and then George Russell, Kimi Antonelli also backing up George Russell's very good performance for Mercedes by a top 6 qualifying as well. Lewis Hamilton quicker than Charles Leclerc on this occasion, but mainly because Charles ran out of soft tyres. He used too many to get to where he needed to be in qualifying. So yeah, good result for Lewis in that respect. A big question mark though as to why Charles went out early on that one and only set of new softs that he had in Q3. Why not save it until the end, as Fernando Alonso did? He only had one set as well. And Fernando did a very good job in the Aston Martin to get into the top 10 as well. So a slight question mark there on the strategy of Charles Leclerc. I don't really understand that at all. There was a threat of rain, but it wasn't raining at the time. And as I say, Fernando Alonso didn't get lured into making that mistake. Anyway, getting back to the front of the grid, we saw some good action today. Oscar and Lando pretty much as we called it yesterday. Oscar quite aggressive with his steering and his input, asking quite a lot of the car out of 2 into 3, but he's right on top of the car. He's got a great balance and he's got great car control and feel, and he was getting away with it really quick throughout the lap. Lando Norris, though, making small mistakes. It all started in FP3 today, really. Typical Lando thing, just sort of building up from them. When he was on a quick lap, right at the end FP3 when they went out on soft tyres just to see how they were going to go in qualifying. And Lando was on a good lap, but then had some sort of bouncing episode going through turn 9, lost the rear, did a very good job of just immediately releasing the steering. And I didn't even know there was an escape road there, but went down the escape road on the outside of 9 rather than going over all the dirt and destroying the floor, and fed his way back onto the lap again. But that kind of put him behind the music. Obviously, he was then second to Oscar going into qualifying, and Oscar was just quicker thereafter, basically all the time. Really good job by Oscar Piastri. And speaking of Fernando, I just got to say, really nice through turn 2 and 3 as well for Fernando Alonso. But the other Spaniard, Carlos Sainz in the Williams, didn't even make it out of Q1 on this occasion, whereas Alex Albon, his teammate, did. So it's now 4-3 to Albon in terms of qualifying. You know, Carlos chose to go to Williams because this was the most competitive car he felt he could find on the grid that was available. I said at the time, I felt he'd be much better off going to Audi because it's a long-term brand that he could build a future with. And at the same time, with Jonathan Wheatley going there was absolutely every reason to think that the team would be better than it was in 2024. And so it proved. Gabriel Bortoleto actually got into Q2 in the car that Carlos Sainz could have been driving had he gone to Audi. But he didn't get out of Q1. Admittedly, Carlos was held up in the traffic jam behind Colapinto in the pit lane. We should have been going out in the closing minutes of Q1, but it shouldn't have been cut so fine. And of course, all that was a function of having to give his car up to Victor Martins in FP1. So it's a great shame for Carlos and very disappointing for him at his home Grand Prix. Anyway, as I also said yesterday, it is quite difficult to look at the Barcelona lap. If you've got no graphics on screen, you don't know how quickly they're actually going. It's quite difficult when you look at the cars on track to distinguish one driver's style from another because they appear to be line locked most of the time. In my opinion, that turn 2, turn 3 section is the most interesting, the most creative, and that's where you see the most differences. But again, we didn't get to see much of that because of the way they're running the TV at this Grand Prix this weekend. So on this occasion, I thought it might be interesting to look at to analyze the laps of the first 3 in qualifying in terms of what they were doing at certain points, identical points, on all corners around the lap. It's a lot of numbers there, but they're all pretty accurate as far as I can make them anyway. And it starts with the speed trap at the beginning of the lap, which is before the braking area into turn 1. And then you see all the turn numbers, and then right at the end, the speed and the gear, and the gear next to the speed, what they're doing as they go through the start-finish line. So if we first of all compare Oscar with Lando and see where Oscar got ahead of Lando and where that lap time came from. Just over 2/10 is a lot. McLaren-Mercedes in a very good car around Barcelona, a circuit that both drivers know like the back of their hand, and yet Oscar blew Lando away. There's no other word to describe it today. So at the beginning of the lap, and I've got to say here, the Red Bull obviously is using its tyres more, as any car would if it doesn't have the same downforce, sufficient downforce level as its opposition. The one thing that's going to happen straight away is you're going to overheat the tyres in trying to extract the best from it. And we'll get onto it in a minute. But quite obviously, whilst the McLaren drivers could run the soft tyre at an optimum in all three sectors, Max had to pick and choose how he was going to put the lap together. As I say, we'll get onto that when we analyse his speeds as well. But just looking at the difference between Oscar and Lando through the speed trap, 328, 327, nothing in it there really. It was quite an amusing cameo at the beginning of Q3, in the first phase of Q3. That's not what we're looking at here when they're running the soft tyres for the first time in Q3. When Oscar Piastri passed Lando, who was on a slow lap, he's on his out lap, and Lando didn't hold him up. But then as they came down towards the end, Lando started to speed up, and the McLaren team said to Oscar as he crossed the line, slow down because Lando's now on a push lap. And of course that gave Lando a nice tow. 2 kilometers an hour he got on that, which he didn't get then in the second run when it really mattered, when they were going a little bit quicker. Bear in mind the track is a little bit quicker in the second part of qualifying. Again, I raised my point about why did Charles Leclerc not wait until this last part of Q3 to do it. Anyway, through the speed trap, 328, 327, not much in it. Turn 1, 168 Oscar Piastri, and exactly the same point Lando Norris is doing 174. That would suggest, actually, contrary to what I was saying yesterday, that Oscar's braking a fraction earlier into turn 1. Now, this could well be that he's thinking by now, yesterday to today, he's thinking the way to get the best from these tyres is to take it a little bit easier through sector 1 and really focus on sectors 2 and 3, which is actually what Max Verstappen had to do right at the end as well. So maybe that's what we're seeing here. And as a result, turn 2, 195, mid-corner speed for Oscar, 199 for Lando Norris, and he's still in fourth gear. He's got more revs on the car and he's pushing the car more, fourth gear at 199, whereas Oscar is going into a higher gear and keeping the car more relaxed, more settled, if you like, and that's a nice thing to see. And look at what's happened as a result of getting that gear early and keeping the revs a little bit lower. Through turn 3, at a certain point in turn 3, he's doing 258 in 7th, whereas Lando, who actually had the quicker exit, is doing 257 in 7th, a little bit slow. So he's lost a little bit of a speed advantage by going for more revs and holding that gear for longer. Turn 4, which is the long right-hander, 168. Oscar, again, you could argue maybe taking a little bit easier than Lando, but very similar through there once it's a long corner. So I say similar, 2 kilometers over a long corner, not that much. Turn 5, of course, is the hairpin, the left hand. This is the exit of turn 5. And there, again, Lando's on the power pretty well, 165 compared with Oscar, 163. So on the basis of that, you have to say Lando definitely looks as if he's on the quicker lap at the moment. Now they're coming down into turn 6. That's that downhill left-hander. And what we got there for turn 6 is the entry to that area. Oscar 256, Lando 257. So again, Lando is quick there. Turn 7, which is the left-hander, the exit of the left-hander. Oscar 165 in fourth gear, Lando 161 in fourth gear. And I guess that's a little bit of Oscar not being so quick in, but just being really good on the way he's getting on the power. So that's impressive to see. Turn 8, which is not really a corner, 215 to 211. That's more a measurement of the speed out of turn 7. Then going into turn 9, identical, 263, 263. So nothing there, although Lando did lose the back end in FP3. He's now completely settled. So through turn 9, exactly the same, very, very quick right-hander. Just a slight lift after they get 7th gear, both doing exactly the same thing there. Into turn 10, the hairpin, exactly the same as Lando and Max, 119 in third gear, 119 kilometers an hour in third gear. As they come through turn 11, which is flat out, it's just a kink. Oscar's doing 217 compared with Lando at 210. And I would say that's more Lando having made some sort of mistake going into the hairpin. So then we get into turn 12. Again, Oscar's looking really, really good through turn 12, which is the long right-hander, double apex right-hander as well, 143 at a point where Lando's doing 139. Turn 13 is the first of the 2 quick right-handers at the end of the lap. 254, 254, absolutely identical. But then look at 14. This is the last corner, the quick right-hander, which leads onto the straight. 273 for Lando Norris, doing what he always does, getting 7th gear and then just backing off slightly before he goes into the corner. And Oscar Piastri doing exactly the same thing, but just the back off for Oscar Piastri is just boom, boom, like that. Whereas Lando's going like that. It's slightly longer off the throttle, and that makes the difference for him. And as you go across the start-finish line, Oscar's picked up that little bit of speed, 305 compared to 302. The result is pole position by approximately 0.2 of a second, so that's just a brilliant lap by Oscar Piastri and puts him in great shape for the race tomorrow, because if he is going to be using the tyres a little bit harder, because he does drive on the rear more than Lando, although it's the left front that tends to go first at Barcelona, he's going to be in free air, providing he makes a good start, which I'm sure he will. He's going to be in free air, and he can drive the races he wants to protect the tyres. Now let's have a look at Max Verstappen. Max was not particularly quick in the first phase of Q3, and any speed he had disappeared as the lap went on. So it's pretty clear that in his mind, he was thinking as he went out for this second and last run that he would take it a little bit easier through the first sector. And the first sector, I've got to say, runs up to turn 4, and the second sector ends just before turn 10. But the interesting point is that nonetheless, Max did about the same time in sector 1 in both phases of qualifying, right at the end as well. But bearing in mind the track was quicker, and he was going quicker anyway, the car was, I don't know, whatever they do to the car for that last run, when they always go quicker, Max in reality was going slower in sector 1 because he was just doing the same time that he'd done when the car wasn't in quite the same form, or the track wasn't as quick anyway. So let's look at it. Speed trap. This is a Red Bull McLaren MCL 39 comparison now, post the Spanish Grand Prix flexi wing test. This is it for the rest of the year. Where are we at? RB21 through the speed trap 327, McLaren 327 as well. Well, Oscar 328, but there or thereabouts. This is a lot to do with the amount of downforce they're running. It's a high downforce circuit. And you got to say there, in terms of drag, I guess you got to say the Red Bull is running about the same amount of drag as the McLaren. But quite obviously, for the wing setup it has and the downforce it's generating underneath, it doesn't have the same overall grip, aero grip, as the McLaren. And that will hurt it in terms of overheating the tyres, imbalance, and various other things. So as they go into turn 1, Max braking earlier, as you would expect. He always does. 163 compared to Oscar's 168 compared to Lando's 174 at exactly the same place. Then that he holds that 197. Yeah, he's not going quickly in sector 1, is what you're saying. 255. He's slower than both of them. Turn 3. 161. Turn 4. I would say turn 4 is potentially the worst corner for the Red Bull McLaren fight at Barcelona, because it's such a long corner. And if the tyres are going to overheat, it's going to be turn 4. And you need a lot of grip and downforce there. There's not much you can do as a driver. You just get into it and you just sit there on this long right-hander. Really boring corner, actually. I've tried to watch at turn 4 on many occasions, and I've never found a place there where you can actually see what the cars are doing or what the drivers are doing. I've never, inside or outside, I just find it a really frustrating corner. Anyway, exit of turn 5, which is just starting to go down the hill. He's dancing with the music now, 166. He's starting to think, right, I got that. I've looked after the tyres now, so we're at 166 there. That's not bad, is it? 258 out of turn 6, pretty good. 158, and then he's very slow through turn 7, which suggests that the traction, or there's something about the car there. Maybe it's a bouncing thing as he's coming up the hill through that point, as he's coming out of that section, that tight section, there's something there that the Red Bull doesn't like. Maybe it's a bump, maybe it's a curb that he can't use that the McLarens have. Turn 8, which is, I say, effectively the kink, and it's just a reflection on how you've gone through that 6-7 section. Look where he is, 204. Not much he can do about that, I suspect. I've never seen a driver be able to do anything about that section. If you're slow there, you can't really use short corners. All you can do is be as sensitive as Max is. Turn 9, 265. Yeah, good on you, Max. Incredibly quick through turn 9. Also backing off just a fraction in 7th, but look at that. That's just pin sharp perfect to be that quick mid-corner. Really, really impressive. Turn 10, same speed as Lando and Oscar. You know, Max, very slow rotation and then getting the car dead straight. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me to see Max at 219, quicker than both McLaren drivers. At turn 11, that's a classic reward that a driver like Max Verstappen gets for getting the car rotated perfectly. 137 through turn 12, yeah, not very good. But again, that's mid-corner rotation speed. He's not very quick there. Don't read too much into that. Turn 13, disappointing, 250 for Max. And that's, I guess, just coming out of that corner. The car's not very good. Maybe the tyres are starting to overheat again. It's not feeling great. The downforce is starting to build up. But it's not a quick time, is it? Speed 250. Then turn 14, look at that. He nonetheless recovers, even though he's 4 kilometers down coming out of 13. He's exactly the same speed in the middle of 14, And you know why? He went through absolutely flat out in 7th gear, did not lift one iota going into the last corner. So all the Max Verstappen fans out there who probably are in a state of shock seeing all these speeds here, you can rejoice in that Max Verstappen, Mr. Short Corner, Mr. Sensitivity, when it came to that long right-hander on the last lap, absolutely flat. Now, I don't want to take the glory away from Max at all, but only one other driver that I've analysed and gone through did exactly the same thing, and that driver was Pierre Gasly. I mean, this guy is really good. Flat through that last right-hander in an Alpine. Wow. Very impressive. So anyway, there we are. That's Max nursing the tyres really through Sector 1. I'd like to say, oh yeah, but he was mega quick in Sector 1 in Phase 1. If you add that to the 2 sector times, he could have been on the pole, but it's not the case. Actually, he did a 21.4, as you can see there. These are the 3 sector times on those laps, on the laps that took them to the first 3 positions on the grid. So Max's overall lap time wouldn't have changed that much. George Russell, I checked on George to see whether he was flat through the last corner as well, because if anybody else was going to be flat, I thought it'd be George, but he does have a slight lift through that last corner. Very good job though, 11.8. Lewis Hamilton, delighted I think to be 12.0, still taking quite wide entries, not looking like the Lewis that was super good in the Mercedes and the McLaren around Barcelona, but nonetheless, you know, he's leaving a bit of margin with that late turn in, and he's able to do more with the tyres, a trick he learned I guess at Mercedes. So he should be in reasonable shape tomorrow. He'll be delighted anyway to be the quicker of the 2 Ferrari drivers. Kimi Antonelli, very good job, 12.1. Pierre Gasly, as I say, 12.1 as well. Isaac Hadjar, again, quicker than Liam Lawson. I mean, that's becoming a pattern, obviously. And again, you got to say, if he's doing a 12.2 in the Racing Bulls and Max Verstappen's doing an 11.8, then, you know, the Racing Bulls still looks to be a quicker car than the RB21 right now. And they don't seem to have made much progress. It's about exactly where everybody, well, certainly where Red Bull were relative to McLaren and Mercedes, really. Everything's just the same, despite all those FIA tests, all the talk. Fernando Alonso, very good job to get into the top 10. Bortoleto, as I say, Alex Albon, the other Williams got through into Q2. And so, as did Oliver Behrman, very good job by him. Esteban Ocon did not. And Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, what is going on with Yuki Tsunoda in the other car? It's like that other Red Bull is non-existent. It's obviously such a difficult car to drive. And that really does bring into focus what Max is doing, I think. And at the risk of this sounding like a, you know, Max Verstappen is brilliant thing, you've got to say, teammate to teammate, Max Verstappen's performance is absolutely amazing. So anyway, there we are. Before we close, a quick word about REC watches and the amazing array of watches that are created by our team, the REC team in Denmark, in Copenhagen in Denmark. They're all racers. They all love motorsport. They all love great cars. And it's the history of motor racing and these cars that have inspired a lot of these timepieces. So take a look at the website. Of course, we talked a lot about the Ayrton Senna Lotus 98T watch. We talked about the Ford GT40 watches. We've talked about the muscle car watches as well. I'm personally wearing one to do with GT cars of the 1960s. Lovely watch. So yeah, have a look there in the description below this video. Big thanks to OEM Exclusive, to TrackNinja and to Jetcraft. Thanks for watching. Let's see what happens in the Spanish Grand Prix tomorrow. Take care.